An email asking, "What did you do last week?" has stoked widespread confusion among federal workers. And Ukraine's president said over the weekend he would leave office if his country became a member of NATO. Good morning. I'm Corva Coleman from NPR News, and here are today's top stories. Federal government employees got an email over the weekend telling them to describe their work over the past week. NPR's Joe Hernandez reports some other Trump administration officials are telling federal employees not to reply.
The email Saturday came from the Office of Personnel Management and arrived hours after Trump advisor Elon Musk said on social media that workers who didn't respond would lose their jobs. The email itself didn't say that. Musk has been tasked with cutting the federal government, and so far the administration has fired some 20,000 federal workers. But the email caused confusion in many parts of the government after other Trump administration officials told workers they didn't have to reply. New FBI Director Kash Patel told the agency's workforce that it would review its own processes and to hold off on replying to the email. The Defense Department also told employees not to respond, and the State Department said it would reply on workers' behalfs. Joe Hernandez, NPR News.
The Trump administration is putting almost all employees of the U.S. Agency for International Development on paid administrative leave. NPR's Fatma Tanis reports the agency says hundreds of layoffs will follow.
America's aid agency has around 4,700 full-time employees. In a memo distributed to agency staff on Sunday afternoon, the administration also announced that a reduction in force would follow with the termination of 1,600 positions. Some exceptions would be made for, quote, mission-critical functions, core leadership, or special designated programs. This is the latest development in the administration's effort to significantly downsize USAID. Before President Trump's inauguration, more than 10,000 people worked there, most of them contractors who've already lost their jobs. On Friday, a federal judge allowed the Trump administration to proceed with its plan to dismantle the agency and put the bulk of USAID staff on leave. Fatma Tanis, NPR News.
French President Emmanuel Macron is in Washington to meet President Trump today. This is also the third anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Trump has been blaming Ukraine for starting that war. That is not true, but it's a view Russia supports. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley says Macron is expected to tell Trump Russian President Vladimir Putin is a threat to Europe.
Macron is probably the closest to Trump of all the European leaders, with the exception of Hungary's Viktor Orban. And he's going to appeal to Trump's ego and inner deal maker. Macron said he would also emphasize that Trump cannot help someone, i.e. Vladimir Putin, who's actually helping Iran develop the nuclear bomb.
NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reporting. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says he would leave office in exchange for NATO membership for his country. NPR's Joanna Kakissis reports.
Speaking to Ukrainian and international media, Zelenskyy said NATO membership remains the strongest and cheapest way to guarantee Ukraine's security against more Russian attacks. He says he would leave office in exchange for Ukraine's quick entry into the security alliance. If there is peace for Ukraine, I'm ready to leave my position, he says. I focus on Ukraine's security right now, not in 20 years. Both Russia and the Trump administration oppose NATO membership for Ukraine. Meanwhile, Zelenskyy also said his team is still working with the U.S. on a deal to exchange hundreds of billions of dollars in critical raw materials for security guarantees. Zelenskyy says the deal must be fair to Ukrainians. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
Germany held national elections over the weekend. The mainstream Conservative Party won the largest share of votes. The party's leader, Friedrich Merz, says he'll quickly form a government. But Esme Nicholson reports in Berlin, a far-right German party got the second largest share of the votes.
Merz's Christian Democrats will be able to uphold what is often referred to as the firewall against the far-right Alternative für Deutschland party, or AfD, by partnering with just one party, according to the provisional election result. AfD leader Alice Weidel says that Merz must respect the will of the electorate and take up her offer to govern together. Merz is expected to seek a coalition with outgoing Chancellor Olaf Scholz's Social Democrats. Merz told voters on Sunday night that the world is not waiting for Germany and that his top priority is to unify and strengthen Europe, calling Vice President J.D. Vance and Elon Musk's support of the AfD as outrageous as interventions from Moscow. For NPR News, I'm Esme Nicholson in Berlin.
Jury selection starts today in North Dakota in a lawsuit filed against environmental activist group Greenpeace. The company, Energy Transfer, is suing Greenpeace for $300 million. This is over environmental protests led by Native Americans nearly a decade ago against the Dakota Access Pipeline. Officials at the company claim Greenpeace and other activists conspired to hurt the company. NPR's Jeff Brady reports Greenpeace says this lawsuit is intended to block free speech.
Greenpeace calls this a SLAP suit, and SLAP stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. Essentially, a wealthy company takes a less wealthy critic to court, forcing them to spend time and money defending themselves rather than protesting. Greenpeace says the goal here is to win and dissuade other companies from filing cases like this.
NPR's Jeff Brady reporting. The Vatican says Pope Francis remains hospitalized in Rome in critical condition. His condition worsened over the weekend. He's suffering from severe pneumonia and infection, and now doctors have detected signs of mild kidney failure. Doctors say that is being controlled. NPR's Joe Hernandez reports the Vatican says the Pope is in good spirits.
Pope Francis entered the hospital on February 14th after suffering a case of bronchitis. He had been in stable condition, but a polymicrobial infection required him to remain in the hospital. The 88-year-old later developed bilateral pneumonia, for which he's receiving supplemental oxygen. Francis has also gotten blood transfusions to treat a low platelet count. The Vatican announced that a new round of testing showed, quote, early mild renal insufficiency, but that it was under control. Francis was elected pope in 2013. Joe Hernandez, NPR News.
Conclave won the big prize at the Screen Actors Guild Awards last night. That's where top performances in film and TV were honored. Steve Futterman reports from Los Angeles.
On an evening where most of the winners were expected, there was one big surprise.
And the actor goes to Timothée Chalamet.
Timothée Chalamet won the award for Best Male Actor in a Leading Role for his portrayal of Bob Dylan in A Complete Unknown.
I'm really in pursuit of greatness. I know people don't usually talk like that, but I want to be one of the greats.
The favorite had been Adrian Brody for The Brutalist. Many SAG members are also Oscar members, so we may have gotten hints about who could win next week. For NPR News, I'm Steve Futterman in Los Angeles.
I'm Corva Coleman, NPR News.